Hey, it's me, Rob Ryan. I am back dropping another episode of Entrepreneurial Thinkers into your feed. A fantastic conversation with a Los Angeles-centric focus, but a globally applicable view on leadership, alignment, purpose, values, and people. The conversation I have and we're sharing with you today with Karim Webb, who is both the principal at Webb Investments, a family-owned investment company that has its fingers into a number of different businesses across the Southern California region, as well as his role as the president of the board of commissioners of Los Angeles International Airport. Yes, Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, which everybody always has an opinion about, no matter where you're from. He sits on the board of that group that leads the decisions on billions in investments that are being made into the airport. And airports, we talk about them today not just as an infrastructure transportation depot, but as an economic engine for a city, for a region, for a country. His leadership lessons that he gives us today are applicable to every entrepreneur, to every investor, and he shares a belief that we do that everyone in leadership in any capacity inside of any career path has an opportunity, and he'll say an obligation, to become more of an entrepreneurial thinker, to understand the mechanisms of capital, of people, of process, and of progress, and how integrated those are to build anything meaningful that will sustain and become a legacy, not just for him as an individual, but for him as a member of our community. So I really enjoyed this conversation, if you can't tell from my energy already, and I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as Karim and I did making it for you.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan.
Hola, hello, hi, bienvenido, welcome back, or welcome to, maybe it's your first time with us here at Entrepreneurial Thinkers, and as you may or may not know, this is the show where I get the privilege to have weekly conversations with people who I consider to be some of the best and brightest entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors and segments of society and industry, as we come together in this conversation to try to hopefully leave the world just a little bit better than we found it before this conversation. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Karim Webb, entrepreneurial activist, principal at Webb Investments, and president of the LA Airport's Board of Commissioners. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him before we welcome him to the show, because this is going to be an awesome conversation with a really dynamic guy right here in Los Angeles, just across town from me. We're shouting out Hollywood to where he's at down in more central LA, and I'm super grateful for this conversation. So let me tell you about his background. Karim is someone who deeply believes that business is never just about profit. It's about proximity, responsibility, people, fundamentally, and long-term memory. He's an entrepreneurial activist who's built real companies in places that, frankly, most people wrote off, including opening the first full-service restaurant in South LA after the '92 riots, then turning that into a model for ownership, workforce development, and community pride. He's a principal at a family investment firm designed to move opportunity closer to the people who need it most. He's a franchise operator who's trained generations of local talent and a trusted voice in rooms where municipal infrastructure, policy, and globally impactful, sometimes billion-dollar decisions are being made, including helping guide the future of LAX, our beloved airport, LA International Airport, for those who aren't from here, one of the world's busiest and most important airports. But what makes him different isn't just these titles, it's the intention that he lives by. He loves old cars, he loves music, he loves his Raiders, he loves his family, he loves his communities and Los Angeles deeply. Everything that he builds always seems to ask the same set of questions: who benefits and for how long? And in a world of fleeting attention spans with short-term decision-making and frankly way too much economic self-dealing by those with power, today we're sitting with a true builder, a connector, and someone who believes that community isn't some kind of side mission or a cool phrase, it's the main mission. I am super grateful to have you here, buddy. Welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers, Karim. It's awesome to see you today.
Man, I'm really glad to be here, Rob. It's been a long time coming, but we're locked and loaded.
Right? Sometimes we say the best for last, man. Sometimes the best things take a little bit of time in life.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about, as you just alluded to. So we're going to kind of try and condense it down. The first question I have, I always joke, like, I am basically a proxy for our audience, right? So these are questions that mostly I'm firstly curious about. And I suspect, knowing our audience, that if I'm curious about it, they're curious about it. And so my first kind of selfish, living here in Los Angeles, proud Angelino question is, I want you to help us understand something. How should we view an airport, in this case, as I referred to LAX, as a critical economic engine for a city and its people, and not just as like a transit depot for travelers?
Great question. Um, I think when you think about any owned asset, the ownership should accrue value to its owners, right? Like ultimately, in a capitalistic democracy, you're looking to be able to provide a service or a product or whatever it is to people, and hopefully do so in a way that's like sustainable, people really enjoy. If, you're a high character leader, you want to do it in a way that's like, um, uh, that encompasses values that are consistent with the interest of all of us, but also in a capitalistic framework, you want to do it efficiently.
Sure.
And you want to do so in a way where, it's profitable. When a city um, when the city owns an entity like the airport, and the city of Los Angeles is the owner of the airport, I think about, okay, there's two things. One, how do we be, or how does the airport operate as the best possible airport for Angelinos? Because all of us, who travel internationally, or most of us, use the airport at some point in time. So how do we create, an experience that is as frictionless as possible, right? That's number one. Number two, how do we leverage the opportunity or the platform that's the airport to drive economic viability into the region? So how do we make it easier for people who would travel here from domestically, business folks domestically, business people internationally, or people who are coming as tourists to Los Angeles? And none of these are like a bigger priority than the other.
Okay.
And the other piece is, how do we accrue the value of the asset to Angelinos or people in our region?
So how do we connect it to the community, like the business community, like the economic activity of,
well, there's jobs,
not just for travelers. Yeah.
Right. There's jobs. So it's workforce development. And I think about that as like, there's 30,000 plus people that work at the airport. About,
wow,
3,700 or so work for the airport or the city of Los Angeles, or
okay,
city of Los Angeles employees. But all our partners, from the airlines to cargo to rent a car to, all of the different businesses that are connected to the airport, it's about 35,000 people. So it's a city, small city in and of itself. And so how do we connect those opportunities to Los Angeles, and make sure people are aware of them and can participate? And as we're investing $30 billion over, several years, how do we make sure we're investing intentionally and creating opportunities, that create sustainable living and careers and skills for, folks who live in and around our city? Be super intentional about that, as intentional as we can be, and as focused on that as we are on making sure the actual infrastructure works.
It's
So
fascinating
there's that.
to me.
And
Yeah.
then there's the who builds it. So we're going to spend $30 billion.
Right.
Who are the businesses that we're building with? Are they values aligned? How do they treat their employees? Who are their employees? Where do they live? Where do they invest? Where do their children go to school? And who becomes wealthy? and whose business grows because we're spending $30 billion to remake LAX. So all of those things are, slices of one pizza. And I
Yeah.
don't look at like this half of the pizza don't have anchovies, and so yeah, that's what I like more. No, it's all of it. And so we don't pat ourselves on the back because the train is going to open or this, that, and the other. I mean, like
Right.
that's a part of it. And that
Yeah.
slice of pizza, we want it to taste just as good as this economic development piece around businesses or the workforce development piece or the current employees at the airport and their experience.
Right.
Right. So it is the entire ecosystem we expect to operate in a world-class way.
All day, every day, right? I mean, it's funny, even just listening to the way you describe it. And again, I'm maybe more aware than the average bear, as we would say, right? Just because I follow you, I watch kind of how the airport commission and airport as a company organization kind of presents itself. And so that's part of what's always fascinated me, right? I don't look at it just as the typical traveler or consumer might, right? And get caught up in just the meme culture of just, I hate the traffic at LAX, or is you like, why isn't the train open, right? That's always just a piece of the pie. But listen to you describe it, it sounds much more like a company, right? It sounds much more like a board and an executive group that is thinking about the wholeness of a business, of a company, and having to attend to all the different parts of it all day, every day, as opposed to just kind of maybe the narrow perspective that just one segment of your users, of your consumers, might think about it every day. That's the fascinating part for me.
It's our responsibility, right? And again, we're volunteer commissioners. I'm blessed to lead it. Super talented group. There's 7 of us, and appointed by Mayor Bass, but and very clear that this asset is owned by the city. And
Yeah.
so the citizens, it's like, how do we create as much value that makes LA and the people who live in Los Angeles better,
Yeah.
better. And that's what our service, our leadership, our decision making should reflect. And that's how we should be measuring ourselves.
I love that. That's amazing. Something else I love is this self-described title of yours, entrepreneurial activist, right? So tell me, what does entrepreneurial activism mean to you, and how should we understand it as kind of a pathway for others in their communities?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a moniker that it holds myself accountable.
Yeah.
And it also sets an expectation across the table. So when I go into any room and I'm introduced, or I introduce myself as an entrepreneurial activist, and I'm in a board meeting on a board of the California Community Foundation, or somebody, like you go into these places where people don't know you, and they ask you to give opportunity for you to introduce yourself, and you introduce yourself as an entrepreneurial activist. People are somewhat curious, but it does set an expectation.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer that you can be intentional about efficiency of your P&L and the opportunities to grow, and recognize that like our society is about human beings,
At the end of the day,
and
that's
that
it.
we can carry the best interest of human beings, all of us, with us in all of our decision making. And that means you got to be intentional. It's not
Yeah.
just about the capital, but the capital and the effectiveness of the business is a tool for us all to live better lives, right?
I,
And
yeah.
and so
100%.
that includes me and my family, but it includes my customer, it includes
Yeah.
my teammate, it includes my partner, it includes it includes everyone that we come across, and rather than kind of being siloed in the approach around like, well, what's good for the business, but we don't have to think about what's good for society. I don't, no.
Yeah. No, and so I'm fascinated, and kudos to you, frankly, for being introspective enough to understand, like, hey, if I literally attach this moniker to myself, right, I am going to be telling myself in the mirror every day, right, that's who I am before I go
Yeah.
out into the world.
Yeah.
And that, just those two words, I mean, man, words matter, right? Like
Yes.
just those two words, right? Just entrepreneur activist, right? Entrepreneurial activist, right? Just this idea of one doesn't exist without the other in your worldview, right? Whereas with so many folks, just, entrepreneur or founder or whatever the choice, or CEO, whatever the choices they make, that people make in their lives, right? That says something. But the two together, that's why I was, hey man, you did it to me, right? You introduced yourself to the world online that way. And I'm like, all right, that's one of the first questions I want to ask about, because as you say, if you walked into a room, people are immediately curious because you didn't just box yourself into the easy, like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm an airport commissioner. And then they can run off and make all their own assumptions about you. You are essentially good salesman, right? You're begging the question. Right, you're begging the curious question from the person in the audience, and now you're engaged in a conversation.
Yeah. So, well, it's exactly right. And people get it pretty quickly when they're talking to me about whatever reason I'm in the room.
Oh, I love that. I love that. All right, so you've got your hands in so many different activities across, as we're peeling pieces of it apart today. So many different businesses, so many different aspects of leadership across the community, across Los Angeles. How do you focus all of these different activities so that they still kind of each maybe complement each other? Some of them are totally unique, right? We'll talk more about later, like running a franchise business, running a restaurant, et cetera, like then being on an airport commission as appointed by the mayor, right? Like, but yet you have at the center this kind of overarching big theme of growth for the city and growth for your communities. Whether communities mean physical places, which they do in some cases for you, or they mean people, like communities of people. Like, so how do you, just through your day to day, like how do you balance all of these different things to make sure that theme stays central every day? We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Haney and Company. We all know that in today's complex financial landscape, having a trusted advisor can make all the difference. Since 1960, Haney and Company has been providing comprehensive accounting services to a diverse range of clients, from small businesses to large corporations. With nearly 400 professionals across 13 locations, they offer services in tax, audit, business consulting, and client advisory. In fact, their commitment to excellence has earned them recognition from Accounting Today and Forbes magazines. At Haney and Company, though, it's not just about balancing books. It's about building lasting relationships based on trust and mutual growth. So visit HaneyCPAs.com. That's HaneyCPAs.com to learn how they can support your business's financial journey.
You balance through teams, processes, and systems. I mean, it's the people that you're aligned with and attached to. The what's happening at the airport, and I do believe we've changed the culture. We've certainly changed the results. I've been there 6 years, first appointed by Mayor Garcetti. And at the time, about 12% of all of our spending was going to what we call kind of XBE businesses. So they're disadvantaged or local businesses or local small business or veteran-owned businesses. Any of the designations that we're allowed to be focused and intentional about our spending, it was about 12%. Now it's 30. I don't think it's good enough, but it's we've more than doubled it. And it's moving in the right direction. Well, that doesn't happen just because I'm there. It happens because we have the right CEO. It happens because people heard the clarion call and were willing to be enrolled into what must be true in order to make that happen. And then they go out and do it every day. And if you were to talk to a senior leader at the airport and ask about the meetings that are happening when the board members aren't there, people who are operating every day, they would tell you that our priorities exist throughout every meeting. And so that's how that happens. On the franchise space, got great operators that I've been blessed to develop. They've stayed with us a long time, and they run the business. I don't. I call myself the high fiver in chief. I understand the numbers backwards and forwards, and so I have the ability to assess information and ask the right questions. But I've got passionate people who are empowered to create their own cultures within the restaurant. They feel good about what they're doing and the people that they're developing and the results that they're getting. They are, their compensation is, and the interest of themselves and their families are aligned with the interest of the business, and they do the lion's share of it. In our family office or our family business, we've got a couple of construction companies and a consulting firm. I know where I enjoy being, so I spend most of my time on the thought leadership, civic engagement. How do we drive an agenda that not only, benefits what we're doing on for a family business, but creates opportunities across the platform and is the right thing to do. So as activists in our entrepreneurial endeavor, but there are people running these businesses that are me. And I'm kind of like a really good board member in my own in my own businesses, civically, with the city of LA or the airport, at the foundation for the county of LA, the California Community Foundation. I got a lot of experiences leading a lot of teams, doing a lot of operating, doing a lot of the hard work. And at this point of my life, can see the forest within the trees sometimes, and can have enough credibility to help set the expectation and to consult leaders who are doing the operating. Now, I say, I come out of the fast food business. My parents were McDonald's franchisees and had a nice footprint of units in the San Gabriel Valley and Inland Empire. So I grew up in a drive-through and on fries. And so my friends or folks that work with me at the airport, I'm always making like restaurant references. But I'll tell people, listen, I'm not on fries anymore. Like I'm not getting on fries that's not my highest and best use. I'm not as fast as I used to be.
Right, there you go.
Cars will be wrapped around the drive-through. That's not how you want to use me. I'm around kind of thought leadership and people development.
But you're at that, like you say, you're at that stage. We're in a similar age bracket. I'm a little bit older than you, but you're at that stage of your career where you can go back and you're like, hey, I know how the fries work.
Yeah.
Like I know how the people, no matter what age they are, no matter what restaurant, like I know how that functions.
Yes.
But my best use of my highest use of my time and talents is at a level helping everybody else understand everything else that's going on around it.
That's correct.
It's an awesome segue. I've got one last LAX related question before we start talking about web investments and the unfurl everything going on at kind of the street level in the community. But even this LAX kind of follow-on question it leans into what you just talked about. Are there, like, it's a huge modernization that's going on, right? And that's easy. That's not the purpose of this podcast. Folks can read about that all day, every day. It's one of the largest it's one of parts of one of the largest public infrastructure projects, I think, in American history. Right? The airport that combines the airport and the metro growth and all that we have going on here is truly transformational. That I don't think people understand that. But again, that's not the whole point of this podcast. But my last question around LAX, because you talk so much about the workforce development, the being intentional about how the board and how the executive group like chooses vendors and partners and all those things. Like what is this economic engine doing for the people who live here, right, and come to work here every day? Are there lessons to be learned in how you guys have been doing this now? You say 6 years you've been a part of this, like that are good models for how other airport authorities can modernize or change the economic kind of centrality of their airports and their cities? Or is this just all super LA specific?
No. Not only is it, I think it's super airport specific today, LAX, because of what we've agreed to do, myself and my fellow board members, and what we're doing now, even different than what was happening under Mayor Garcetti, and there was different board leadership. But I do think that what we're doing at the airport could be happening at the ports. It could be happening at DWP. It could be happening at Public Works. It could be happening anywhere where I call it like kind of values align policymakers. They're the people who are ultimately, we report to the mayor. So the mayor is the boss of the airport. But the mayor's got 40 departments that she runs, 40. Right. And so the mayor cannot be in the weeds of what's happening in the airport. She can't be in the weeds of what's happening within the culture of the leadership team and therefore the other 3,500 people that work for the city there, or the other 35,000 people that work at the airport. She's not. So it requires a board. I don't think, in the city of LA, um, um, commission appointments and commission management has been akin to what you would expect a board to do in the public sector. Oh, I'm sorry, in the private sector.
Right.
But it should be. And so we have a board that has a diverse set of core competencies. And those core competencies are deployed with the leadership team and a structure that would be pretty consistent with what I've seen in private sector board governance. That has not always or very often been the case in the city of LA. I can't speak to other jurisdictions, but it's how we're running the airport, and we've gotten great results because of it with good leadership.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a specific opportunity to scale across the city, the region, for outcomes that are in the interest of our citizenry.
With similar, like you said, like those public works, large public infrastructure type of stuff. And
that's
how
where
it
we have
operates.
the biggest bang for our buck, right?
Yeah.
You're spending 30 billion, or you're spending billions and billions of dollars in metro, or what's happening at the ports, or happening at the Port of Long Beach, or all the freeways and roads that are going to be built forever, or all the infrastructure, the undergrounding of power lines, or the data centers that are coming online, and the rest of kind of like the energy creation that has to happen. In California is Germany. We're the 4th largest economy in the world. LA County is the 20th largest economy in the entire world.
Shout that out. I say that people who listen to the show hear me talk about that all the time. Yeah. Like that our LA, kind of the regional economy here is essentially Saudi Arabia or Switzerland or like Indonesia. Like, so like, don't tell me that you can't find opportunity here. Or conversely, when you talk about accountability, like, hey, as you're alluding to, it sounds like, right? Like, hey man, like we need to look at ourselves as having that much power. Like we need to appreciate that we're not just some little town and we can only do little town stuff. Like we're essentially a country here. Forget California, which is obviously like a nation state, but like here we're a country, and therefore we should kind of almost aspire to that, maybe, as opposed to say live up to that.
And interestingly, our leadership apparatus doesn't understand
that
capital. That's the reality, right? Our leadership apparatus, our values aligned, incredible, big-hearted, effective human beings that by and large come from community organizing.
Sure.
They don't understand institutional capital. Yep. They don't understand the power of pensions and who the primary beneficiaries are of managing those assets.
Yeah.
And how they manage them, and what companies and ideas and leadership gets invested in. And so we don't have an intentional strategy around, how do we spend our public dollars? Who are we spending it with? How do we align the interest of labor and the folks that we want to really be leading businesses around, at least the ones that are getting the benefit of the public spending, and get those businesses aligned, and that leadership aligned with labor, such that maybe the equity could come from labor, right? You'd have much different conversations, and there'd be a much a different level of velocity and alignment between the quote unquote business leadership of our region versus the political leadership, which is primarily underwritten by the labor apparatus in California and in LA. And so there's a lot of opportunity here that's not being seized, and that's the work that I'm focused on.
Hugely. No, thank God you are. And boy, are you and I even more aligned than I suspected we were, even though I suspected and kind of knew we were. I mean, it's the simple mythology, right, that we hear, kind of, the everyman kind of perspective is super overly simplified down to, if things are going great, like, hey, government works for me, this is awesome. If things are going terrible, hey, we should run our government more like a business. And I've always said, like, that latter one, even though I'm a capitalist, like, I'm also a believer in good governance and governance for good, right? And I look at most of what we've created in the last 100 years of our country here in the US. And if you look at those moments and you really study history, like pre-World War II, post-war, like a lot of that was fueled by the government, right? Like, but by good government intervention, like government investment, involvement, right?
Yeah.
Not, and we didn't use words like subsidies and like it was literally
No,
investment.
it was very intentional.
Very much so, right?
Yes.
A lot of what the legacies of FDR and all those other
Yes.
like that stuff was very intentional to solve acute problems in the moment, but also to create legacy organizations that could then essentially help bolster society, right? In very, very specific ways. And I couldn't agree with you more. Like I often find myself feeling like, boy, if we could just, not you or me, but we're trying to do it today. But like if we, the political leadership, right, governance, could just tell the story a little bit better, right? If we could more effectively.
Well, we could have a better plan,
right?
Well, ultimately,
it starts there, right? It starts there.
The social safety net, which is critical, but I'll call it values aligns. I wouldn't even say left, but I would say there's people, I've got conservative friends that aren't like conservative, like the current federal leadership that we've got, but who are generally, frustrated about energy in California. It educated me around energy. Why do we bring this dirty fuel from Ecuador through the ocean that screws up because we don't want to do certain things in California? We could, there are ideas that are valid that aren't just on the quote unquote left.
Right. 100%.
But our focus, the focus of our power has been the social safety net of our political power. It's been the social safety net. And income inequality is being exacerbated much faster than tax revenues can sustain even the current status quo of the social safety net. And so the safety net is the bar is getting lower and lower and lower, and more people fall into like what's needed around the social safety net, while the aggregation of wealth is being more concentrated. And the only way you're not going to address that with tax dollars. You have to have a strategy that goes where the resources are, and that's money. So we got to be very intentional about how we spend our public resources, because that typically comes from debt, bond financing that builds the airport, $30 billion, right? And revenue that comes from the public sector that flies planes, it gets on planes and brings in cargo and all that stuff. Same thing with the ports.
No,
right?
But even there, right? We and that's why I say to the story part, right? Is the collective we, right? Don't tell that growth operational capital story, right? Effectively enough. And so then what you get is the relatively, marginally engaged citizen, which is normal most places around the world. And then that person just says like, oh, well, I don't even know that the Karim Webbs of the world exist, or that there are commissions, or that commissions hold real power, or that commissions are doing the functional work of the board, like if it was a private company already, right? And so then we just blame it on like whomever the politician of the era or the moment is, and say like, well, in our case.
I think that's right, Rob, but also like the opposition or the folks that are currently like the beneficiaries of
that
lack of having a strategy.
Yeah.
The folks that vote on that side, they're unaware too.
Yeah.
They don't understand capital and this, that, and the other. The majority of folks that are like MAGA, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And so the responsibility is in our policymakers.
100%.
Wait, no, you can't be a city council person and you don't understand the difference between private equity and venture capital.
Right.
Like, no, you have to understand the way that resources work, if you're going to be a decision maker around resources and framing policy.
Yeah.
So, but that is the responsibility of the folks who do understand it, who have the trust of folks in leadership to be able to get in front of folks and enroll them in the idea of like, wait a minute, let's what you do is valid. We support what it is that you do and what you care about, and need you to see this.
Yeah.
This is
I mean,
where the resources are.
right. Yeah. Like my punchline on all of this, and we'll move on because I want to get in talking about web investments and whatnot. But like one of my punchlines on all of these types of conversations, whenever they present themselves, either in this show or in my life, is always like, let me help you understand how a growth story, how an investment story, my verbiage for how we can use the capital that's available to us, how we can use the capital to create programs and services that then will enable more capital growth and more revenue creation, et cetera. Like, let me help you understand how like a growth story isn't anathema to what you're trying to accomplish. Like it actually is like the fuel that would enable you to accomplish more.
Yes.
Right. Like if you can understand that the two, as you say, are aligned. I love this phrase you keep coming back to, values aligned, right? Is that the outcomes that may sound or feel like they're coming from completely different places. The truth is like they're pointing towards this same shared reality. Right. Like, and so if you can create that a condition or that level of understanding amongst the people who have those responsibilities, right, to oversee that. And then as you say, where that hasn't happened, well, then the next layer of people like yourself and others, right, that you can assert your power by getting in front of those people and helping those people to understand what they didn't understand before they got elected, or right, helping and not insulate them from it, but like expose them to it almost in an internal kind of mentorish kind of way.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Chisos Capital. Everyone knows that raising capital is hard. And frankly, finding the next pool of entrepreneurs to get access to as limited investors is sometimes impossible too. Do you have a big idea, a dream you're building, but you're struggling to find early funding? Well, Chisos is changing the game for founders, creators, athletes, and investors. Whether you're launching a startup, growing your creative brand, or training for the big leagues, Chisos backs you. Chisos uniquely invests up to $100,000 in people, not just products, whether they be entrepreneurs, creators, or even athletes. With their unique CISA model, convertible income share agreements, founders get flexible funding without giving up equity or ownership, and investors get attractive returns and great upside with less risk. Chisos works for both investors and the people bringing our world to life. If you're seeking access to a truly diverse pool of deals, or you're someone who feels overlooked by the VC game, Chisos is ready to back you. So apply now at chisos.io.
That's exactly right. I mean, my least common denominator for values alignment is human beings that believe God loves us all the same. That's it. So if you believe that, like how you get to
everything else,
people being able to have agency and like live their best life and this, that, and the other, we can have differences of opinions around that and have a conversation about it. Yeah. Just let me know that you believe that and that your actions and your leadership, like you're not leveraging your power, in a way that is misaligned with that reality.
Yeah. No, I mean, it goes back to just the opening of this, right? Is I wanted to ask about LAX, but I didn't want to ask about like the lazy LAX questions, right? That anybody or most people would want to ask. Like, I want to understand LAX as what you've now described it for all of us to listen and to contemplate. A lot of Angelinos listen to this podcast, and they're business people and they're venture capital investors and they're private equity people and they're entrepreneurs, and they use LAX and they probably just think about it narrowly. And so you're helping us to kind of expand that to understand what an economic engine it is, what a part of the growth story it is, and how these investments into this, not spending, not government waste, like investments of public dollars into this, and in some cases private dollars, like into these things, are then to reap the benefits of what we will say. And most people struggle with this last part. I talk like this all the time, which makes my 31-year-old daughter laugh. But like, these will be things that will be seen and experienced 50 years from now, 100 years from now, right? Like my grandson, who's 14 months old, when he's 55, he will be experiencing an LAX that is become a deeply integrated, active part of the community that is fueling not just his ability to get places, but that is part of the growth story of Los Angeles in the next 100 years. Right?
Yes.
And that's much more what I'm concerned about than what I'm concerned about, like whether I could get in and out of LAX in 20 minutes in the next 10 years. Like that will come, right? And also, by the way, just to put it on the record here, since this is my show, I've never thought LAX is particularly hard to get in and out of. Like I've lived here for almost 30 years. And like, I mean, you should, it's your job to make it. You should make it better, best.
The most notes I get on my car is about people trying to get in and out of the CTA. So the Central Terminal area, the Horseshoe. But I promise this summer is coming to an end. It's finally, we're going to get all the buses out of there and LA exit.
I think I'm either spoiled or hardened, depending on how you want to describe it. That I actually grew up. My dad taught me how to drive. My dad, way before in another life, was a cabbie in Chicago, and he taught me how to drive. Like literally, when I was learning how to drive, he like, here's the keys to Mom's station wagon, and he drove us from our part of Chicago into the airport and the horseshoe effective horseshoe of O'Hare Airport.
Yeah.
And he did it intentionally during morning rush hour and evening departure arrival rush hour, and made me like learn how to parallel park. And he had a couple of Chicago police buddies who were always working, who wouldn't let me like leave, like they would force me to learn. So maybe I'm inoculated to the frenetic nature of airports because of the way that I grew up. To me, they're all fine, right? But your job is to make them excellent, and to make them
to make it excellent, to make it efficient. Yeah. And also, like, when you know what's coming and you're like, you're just anxious to get it in so that you can celebrate the win. And
transformational stuff.
It's going to be, when the People Mover opens, in the summer of 26, it'll be a game changer for how people experience LAX and then all the rest of the things that are happening prior to the Olympics in 28. The entire airport experience.
And then it just keeps unfolding from there. Yeah. I mean, that's just it, right?
It'll never end. Yeah.
No, exactly. It's the legacy of your lifetime work. All right. Speaking of legacy of lifetime work, you alluded to the story a little bit. I want to talk about Webb Investments now, because even inside of Webb Investments, it seems like you've got your fingers and the family's investment fingers into a whole bunch of different things. So the story is your folks were McDonald's franchisees, and that's how this all got started. So maybe tell us a little bit of that origin story.
My folks it's a very LA story. Pops came here at 11 years old with his grandmother, who raised him in South Central. He went to Manual Arts High School. Mom moved here with her mother, a single mom at 16, went to Dorsey. They met early. My father's mother worked with Danny Bakewell, who's a LA, legend at UCLA Extension. Charlie knew each other, and Danny was instrumental in getting my father to his first jobs and all of that kind of stuff. And then he got a job at McDonald's at a time when it was growing. He was working at a company in America that was like the Amazon of the 70s.
Pretty much.
Right place, right time. Became a corporate executive, an officer of the company. He actually ran McDonald's during the '84 Olympics in all of California, Southern California and Hawaii, which was cool and big deal. And they were a title sponsor of the Olympics. So I remember the '84 Olympics. I was 10, so the '84 Olympic experience. And then in '85, he came in my room and said, "Man, you could never inherit my job, but one day you might be able to inherit my business." So it was his ability, like him working at a company where he had stock options, which is the only way he would have ever had equity enough to put a down payment on 2 McDonald's restaurants to become a franchisee in Pomona.
Okay.
And he and my mother, who was an accountant, a Cal State LA grad and an accountant, ran that business, and they grew it from 2 units to 16 units.
Wow.
And then we sold that business. The family sold that business about 5 years ago now, 4.5 years ago or so. And we acquired a modular manufacturing business. And so it's called Silver Creek Modular. It builds schools. It's in the Inland Empire.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've seen you guys seem like lately this year, there's been more posts online, social media about that, part of the business.
A team, we're growing and all of that kind of stuff, and going to be doing more storytelling. And it's a growing successful, thank God, business. And then this year we acquired a concrete and asphalt undergrounding business, and so we're gonna continue to scale in the infrastructure space. We have some interest in the healthcare space, and we have a consultancy, Parity Solutions,
Okay.
and we're doing some of the training that we were talking about earlier in our conversation. So we just had an accelerator where we had labor leaders in the region, policymakers in the region, basically getting institutional capital one-on-one. What is private equity? What are alternative investments? Where is, what are the pensions currently investing in? How do private equity firms get compensated 2 and 20? Understand where your capital is. You got a job, you represent longshoremen, you make 150, 170, 200,000, including, overtime. Your kid can afford to go to UCLA, but would your retirement ever invest in their idea? Probably not.
Wow.
Right. So, but what if that were the case? And what if we had a coordinated effort with these resources, and our policymakers and our public spending? What could we do? How many more businesses from community would scale and grow? How could we ensure that not just CEOs and top level ownership become super wealthy, but there's more value being created through the entire value chain? So like we're in the mix, in the middle of that conversation, and working to educate folks and trying to make a change for our economy, and have more families that have experiences consistent with my folks, to have opportunities to not only build wealth, but also contribute civically, like myself and my siblings, certainly my parents have, and other Angelinos do too.
Yeah, I love
Just want to
that.
grow it.
You just mentioned siblings. So is there like another next generation? Is there at the end of your story, Karim's story, somewhere in the next 50 years, is there going to be that next generation of Webb family folks to carry this on and build it into the next century?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we in our family office and our parents' trust, it's a 7 generation strategy. So we make decisions now for 7 generations from now. And that's that's how our business and our board and our governance is. That's our charter. So that's what we do.
You talk about it so just endemic to who you are, right? The not just we keep using the word community, but I'm gonna narrow it down even further now, neighborhoods, right? So you talk about, how I'm sure those McDonald's franchises that your parents ran were like anchors in those neighborhoods where they were in Pomona and then in other locations around San Gabriel Valley as they grew. You're talking about the modular business that's helping build like modular construction for schools. And hey, in our world of what we're going to need as far as housing and all kinds of different creative things, I'm sure that sets itself up well for that. But you also are very attuned, and you've got some great friends, a couple that we know in common, that are just all about taking the economic power that they create and literally like transforming their neighborhoods that they live in, right? In South LA, or what Austin and AJ are doing down on Slauson. Talk to me about that kind of neighborhood up type of approach to how you think about economic investment and development.
The effective leverage of resources is what capitalism is in sense, right? And that's people driven. And so the opportunity should incent behavior. Like people who have an opportunity to participate are incentivized to behave in a way that's consistent with earning the right to participate. And so you want to incent high character, talented people to be able to accumulate resources that equate to more choices for themselves, the people that they love. And that's going to be consistent with their upbringing, their experiences. People from community that do well invest in those nonprofits. They build in those communities. They bring their culture, and can not only elevate, but also kind of bring what they care about and what their experiences are to the rest of us, because they have the resources to be able to express themselves that way. That's really what it's about. I mean, and so, rather, I don't have a South LA strategy or, East Long Beach strategy or this, that, or the other, whatever. We're not into development like that, or so, from a place making perspective, but it is about democratizing access. Because there is talent everywhere, the talent has to be informed and then incentivized, and the talent will show up with great ideas. So, as many frameworks as you can create to support that talent, and organize that talent such that it can compete for the resources to continue to scale, the more value you're adding.
And ultimately, it's and I love how you described that, right? It sounds like you can find, and you do eventually find, those partners who their whole existence around what they're doing might just be that South LA strategy,
Yes.
or that East Long Beach strategy. That's their whole thing. And so then you can come along, and it sounds very similarly to how you view yourself and your own capabilities and power at kind of that board level. Like, hey, I'm not doing the fries anymore. The fry guy might be that local South LA neighborhood strategy guy, but I'm going to play up here, and I'm going to help you execute that strategy in that neighborhood, because I also want to see that neighborhood grow. It's just not the only thing I'm thinking about today.
Yeah, that's right. And more importantly, I just want to see you express why God put you on the planet. Like, I trust you're going to do the right thing. You're going to figure it out, because you're going to know something that I don't know about that area, about what's wanted and needed. But what you don't know is how philanthropy works and how you could use these PRI dollars in order to, or who the individuals are that you need to be connected to enable your idea, or to give you an additional resource that you weren't otherwise thinking of, which is the role we can play.
I've got a couple of personal questions I'm going to get to here to finish up in this segment before we get to our closing segment. But before I do that, I have one more kind of very broad-based question, because it's so much of how we found each other online initially way back when, and kind of are connected through some of these common people. Like, we have this phrase, right? This hashtag long LA, right? We're believers. We have this stock market-ish owner's view of like a long hold belief in what is the potential of Los Angeles. I say a lot lately, especially during this crazy challenging year of 2025, which thankfully we are about to close out, right? Like, I say oftentimes, I think, just me, my personal opinion, so I don't have to ascribe this to you, that we will look back at the 2020s and we'll see that this was not just an era of some challenge, but also then the beginning of a renaissance of Los Angeles. It's a city that's reinvented itself a dozen times over the last 150 to 250 years, right? So I'm curious, like, one, why are you so long LA? Like, what is it about our potential, our future, our inborn capabilities that you believe so much in? And then, do you think we're also maybe in the early days of a renaissance?
Oh, that's such a great question. I'll answer it this way. I shared with you earlier that I just got engaged. My partner's from Queens, and so we were in New York prior to Christmas. And I've been in New York many times, raised money, and almost all the time I'm in New York. I've been in Manhattan, maybe Dumbo, in Brooklyn, but not in Queens for sure. Not rolling around Jackson Heights and the different parts of Queens and Brooklyn and the Bronx, like I was, and it felt so good. There's so much like amalgamation of different cultures,
100%,
and people. It felt like love being there. And what I realized immediately is that's what I love about LA.
Sure.
Like, LA is so diverse, so many different pockets, so much, incredible experience coming from so many different parts of the world. And people are all here without the snow, and it's, LA is assertive but it does have the vibe of a warm weather climate. So it's not the Caribbean and like that
Right.
level
Right.
of kind of kickback slowness,
Right.
but we have a energy um to our assertiveness, a creative energy to it generally across the board, still a very rooted um um place. I just you still feel like the indigenousness of um, the original people on this planet, and then the migratory aspects of who were the first movers from east and Midwest and South, um, into LA, and it's sprawl, and we drive, and it's wide, and there's 20 million people in our DMA, and so
Yeah.
much to experience, and it's so rich with opportunity. Um, and it's young. We're a young city. We're not,
Ah,
you go to the East Coast, we were not a colony.
right.
This is not legacy, 10 generation family money back to
No.
this is
Yeah,
young
I mean,
energy.
I
And
always say like
yeah,
we may be only 5 years younger than the country,
yeah,
but for like the first 150 years of that 250 years, like we were basically just like a village. Like we were
yes,
like we were very, as you would say, indigenous. I mean,
yeah,
we were Mexico before that, right? So like we're very much that, but it's been this last 100 years.
yeah.
Um, we are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Shore Capital. In today's venture capital world, it's not just about cash, it's about relationships. Capital is harder to find, limited investors have fewer managers that they can trust, and the industry is just filled with far too much hype. Shore Capital is an early stage venture fund investing in the world's most ruthlessly iterative founders, helping its limited partners to find founders who are solving the world's most dynamic problems, teams that excel in mastering the idea maze, teams moving with a rapid iterative velocity and demonstrating radical resourcefulness. Shore Capital doesn't just write checks though. They become fractional co-founders when needed, offering strategic support, high leverage relationship development, and a deep commitment to the long-term success of their portfolio companies. If you are a ruthlessly iterative founder with a bold vision or a limited investor seeking sustained access to the brightest big thinkers of our time, Shore Capital wants to meet you. So visit shorecapital.notion.site to learn more.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing about those things that you just said, the size and the sprawl, that you believe is like ultimately too much or a detriment. You're feeling, because I'm feeling it coming through the screen here, like you feel like I do, that it's that very thing, those things that describe us, that then are almost inevitable for the next 100 years.
I think that we're coming out of, I think we're a teenager,
That's
in a
lovely.
country that has gotten a little stale and uncompetitive globally.
Yeah.
And we're poised to lead. Like, we're forward leaning, youthful, and poised to really be like a global leader with the right mindset. Our leadership apparatus is heartfelt and heart driven. So we got problems, but we're as well positioned as any region on the planet to do well for ourselves and others.
I
And I
love
think
that.
we want to. And that's what makes LA so cool.
Right. I've added to the mix. I used to say it's like a city of dreamers. And in this last like 4 or 5 years, I'd say it's a city of dreamers and doers. Right. It's just people like you, all due respect, like that just get stuff done. Right. That use the talents that God gave them or that they have matriculated over the course of their careers. And then it's all about relationships. Hey, I love the weather, not going to complain. Even this next couple of days when it's going to feel like winter and be rainy, and that's fine. Right. But like,
But
to me,
yesterday was 70 and sunny.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
to me, even when I mention the 8 or 10 things that are absolutely to me define Los Angeles, the weather's always like eighth or ninth on the, like it's in there, but it's like it's diversity, man. It's that like I live in Hollywood, right across from the edge of the hills, Franklin in old Hollywood, and like I'll go up and before I hurt my knee, I'll go up and hike on Runyon. And one of the things I love about hiking on Runyon is literally like taking out my ear pods and just walking past people. And I'll always say this, I'll hear 30, 40, 50 different languages just on like a 1.5 hour hike and hang out up at the top and watch all the people with their dogs. And you hear the Russians and the Armenians and the Brazilians and the all the variations of Spanish from all these different places, right? And you can pick out the Germans that are visiting. And it's like, oh man, wow. Like some days I just walk out into the craziness that is my neighborhood in Hollywood. And I'm like, this is fucking awesome.
I love it, man.
Right?
I love it.
It's such unique energy. All right. Last couple of questions. Thank you for this. It's been a pleasure. But these are a couple little personal questions, right? So you're a young guy. I like to think I'm still a young guy, right? But we're not going to live forever, right? So I'm curious, like, how do you operate at this pace and this rhythm that you do? I mean, like you are doing a lot on a weekly basis. How are you taking care of yourself? How do you keep your mind sharp? And how are you taking care of your body so that you and your newly engaged fiance, like that you guys will live a lovely, prosperous life for the next 50 or 60 years?
Yeah, it's definitely a priority to be much more consistent on my like physical health and working out and all of that kind of stuff because it's been frankly like inconsistent. So times when I'm much better at it than others. I'm a spiritual person, so I'm talking to God every day throughout the day because my relationship like is really kind of like at my core is a covenant with the Creator around what I'm doing and what I've been like had the grace to even still be here to be doing this stuff because it didn't have to be true. So I think there's that. And I love people, man. So like it's really, I think probably like you, man. Like it seems like a lot that I'm doing, but a lot of people are doing a lot of stuff, and I've got the privilege of doing the stuff that is the most important to me, and everything I do, I'm passionate about, and so it's fun. There are times I live in, on the west side and, I got to go to a meeting downtown at 9 o'clock in traffic and it's going to take an hour, 15 minutes through the streets or whatever it is. And you're like, but I know like the meeting I'm going to is super interesting to me, or at least a part of it is going to be. And the people that I'm meeting with, I enjoy programming with. And or even though we're going to this meeting, we're programming on 3 or 4 different things that I got to talk to them about or whatever.
Sure.
So, and then I'm programming on the phone on the way there, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm talking to other people on the phone in the car all the way there about, a business interest or a civic, responsibility or, something we're trying to create in the world some sort of way. So, I don't separate personal life from business life it's just life and what are we trying to get done. And, thankfully I've got just great teams everywhere I look, great folks that I'm connected with that are working on stuff in partnership with me. So that's how I look at it. It does not feel, when I think about intensity, I go to the airport and see somebody on the ramp, like lifting bags of stuff or, all the hundreds of nights, thousands of nights, closed restaurants and all that kind of stuff. That feels intimidating to me and like, whoa, crap. But what I do feels kind of cushy, to be honest.
Right? Yeah, no, exactly. You seem to have mastered the importance of I get to rather than I have to.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that it took me, again, we're roughly the same age. I'm 57. You said 52, right? It took me till about 50 to really embrace that. I spent a lot of my life and my career chasing around, complaining in my mind to myself and nobody else about the things that I felt like I had to do, and not appreciating just the joy of, I get to do this. Like this is, I'm not gonna lie, this isn't to blow smoke up your ass. Like I was a little excited last night, couldn't really sleep because I was excited to get up and have this conversation. Like I was thinking to myself, like, it's a holiday week. There's not much else going on. I got to go to the doctor later. Like, okay, there's some other stuff, but like, I get to have this conversation with you across town using technology. Like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's pretty cool. All right, last question, personal question. Then we got one closing segment, and we'll get you out of here so you can get on with your day and enjoy your holiday and go make an impact. How do you define success?
Well, man, it's literally a conversation with God. It's like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? You know, like, am I honoring the fact that I still got breath? That's it, and that's all. And you know the difference between whether you are or not, and how much meat are you leaving on the bone? And so, yeah, and uncertainty is certain for all of us. You know, none of us feel 100% secure in every room. Me included, for sure. There's spaces I'm invited to where I'm, I got to go in the mirror and pump myself, you know what I mean? And all of
You're
that.
like, oh shit, like I'm going into this room. Okay.
Yeah. Or where, I'm unfamiliar, with the information or what, other people's experiences that are in the room. So you feel uncomfortable, unsettled. This is not my domain. And how to move. But when you feel those ways and that you're in your purpose, that you're in your why, as evidenced by the life that you've lived up to this point and the grace that you received, then you could just sit back and you ain't got to be in the front of every room. You don't have to be to drive every conversation. You can be confident in knowing that, yeah, I'm a good dude, man. Like I'm
where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Man, I'm a value add. I'm a plus.
And I would imagine it sounds like, because I feel this oftentimes myself, but it sounds like there's a confidence, a quiet, subtle confidence and comfort that comes with age and wisdom and experience, right? And your faithful relationship with God that helps you to then easily know, ooh, okay, whoa, this room, this moment, this conversation, like this is not aligned with my purpose. This is not aligned with my why. So let me check myself out of this. Let me get myself back to, like, it's like you're able to catch yourself more easily, wander less, maybe is the way I would put it, at this stage of your career.
And you know what's funny, Rob? How infrequently I find myself in those situations.
I was just they
can't even
happen a lot less.
Time. Yeah, I was in some place that was like violently opposed to what I work on. There's some times where I'm like, this isn't the highest, the best use of my time.
Right.
And even that's few and far between nowadays.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. And that clarity is key. All right, last question. This one's different vibe, a little bit more like actionable advice, something for folks to take away when they listen to this and like apply right away, as opposed to the broader philosophy of things that we've just discussed. What are one or two practical things that someone who's listening to this, who wants to build impact in their community, like they see themselves, they want to become comfortably calling themselves an entrepreneurial activist in their neighborhood or their city, what are one or two practical things that person should think about doing or think about themselves to get themselves on that path?
The two things that I tell everybody. If you intend to continue to live in America or anywhere in the world, really, and you don't understand finance, and I think it's worth defining that, but then you're handicapped. Like, you can't reverse engineer. You can solve small problems, maybe some medium-sized problems, but you don't have all the tools at your disposal. You can't see the landscape appropriately. You're playing chess and you don't know what the chessboard is really looking like. It's a capitalistic democracy, and the Western philosophy and leveraging resources in order to make things happen is how the whole world economy works. If you don't understand it, then you're just not playing with a full deck. I wish I understood that earlier. I was a poli-sci major in college, but it was later in life that I got exposed to cap tables, private equity, and my question was, where did they get their money?
Yep.
And I was amazed at the answer. And we all need to have it. spoke to the #1 class coming from USC to football players. And that's the #1 thing. No matter what you major in, minor in finance, you have to understand where the money comes from and who's managing it to give. If you're going to play in the NFL, who owns the team, where they get their money
Yep.
to express their ideas. You got to understand. So that's #1. You got to invest in whatever YouTube 101 finance and capital and institutional capital. And the second thing that I will tell people is the tool that I use and train is this phrase, what must be true. And so whatever you want to see in the world happen, what must be true to make that happen?
Okay.
And if you write down what must be true to make that happen, then each one of those what must be true have a what must be true to make those happen. Eventually you get your plan.
That's powerful.
And then you figure out, where do you get in, where you fit in, what do you want to do, how big do you want to go, where do you start?
What do you need? Who do you need?
Clearly.
What resources do you need? Who do you need to help you? It's all that just flows right off that. That's powerful.
What must be true to make happen what's important to you and what feels consistent with your truth?
That's amazing. I'll tell you what must be true about me today is that I am super grateful that we had this conversation. This is awesome. As you said, a long time in coming. It's funny about these mostly digital relationships that we have in these big spread out places that we live in this world, where sometimes you can just, for whatever reasons, like you could feel connected to someone and feel aligned, values aligned, even more importantly. And then to me, not just because I've decided in this last couple of years to make this literally my business and my job, but also just because it is fundamentally who I am. Like I'm the same curious kid that I was when I was 15 or 16 years old that would always ask too many questions and always wanted to hang out with the adults to learn more. I'm just doing that with you. And I got to just do that with you and learn more about what makes you tick, which then just emboldens my confidence for the future of our city, because you've got people like you that are involved in the mechanism of leadership here. And that's I'm incredibly grateful for that, in addition to just for this conversation, man. Really a pleasure. Really, really, absolutely a pleasure.
Well, Rob, thank you for your patience and your persistence, because I've enjoyed this conversation too. And thank you for your platform, doing research on what you're doing and other kind of folks that you talk to. I'm glad to be included in your cohort.
My pleasure.
Man,
you're an entrepreneurial thinker.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to hijack that last bit of what you talked about there, because to me, stand in front of those kids at USC or stand in front of kids at UCLA or standing in front of politicians that are already elected to the city council of Los Angeles or the county board of supervisors and saying to them, hey, like, let me help you understand the capital mechanisms of how this all works so that we can get more done. Like, that's my whole thesis, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying, like, we don't just need more entrepreneurs and we don't just need more investors. We need everybody in every sector and segment of society to, at least in a very modest way, become an entrepreneurial thinker. Yeah. About this, that I will go to my grave 40, 50 years from now, hopefully, right? Believing that is the legacy that we're trying to all change. So thank you for that. How can folks find you or follow you, or if you don't want them to find you or follow you, that's good too. But like, how can people connect to maybe Webb Investments? If maybe there's people who are listening who'd want to partner with you guys, like give us some of the details on the socials or the website.
Man, I'm easy to find, man, and I respond. So I'm at Karim Webb, IG. Yeah, it's the best way to, where I'm most active. LinkedIn, less active, etc. But my IG, man, just communicating with me that way. I am going to plug the Cash Room, which is a conversation I'm going to be having about decoding why things are happening and where the money is, so that folks can tap into that. So we're launching that in 2026.
Awesome.
The Cash Room. So,
yeah, when that comes out, whatever form that thing takes, like, and you want to talk about it further, just hit me up and come back on the show. We'll talk about Cash Room only.
All right, great.
Because it sounds like it fits into everything we're talking about. So
100%.
I love it. Thank you. Have a great New Year this week, and we'll see you in 2026, buddy.
Take care, Rob. God bless.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did recording it. As always, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's show was recorded here in Los Angeles and produced by the incomparable Deanna Bernal in Mexico City. You know, we can only grow this show by you listening and sharing the show with friends. So please find, like, follow, subscribe, and share our audio-only show on Spotify, Apple, or via any other popular podcasting platforms, as well as find the video version of our show now available on our YouTube channel over at Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And of course, you can follow along on our various social media platforms for fun and informative clips and content at Entrepreneurial Thinkers, wherever you can find us. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at I Am Rob Ryan on just about any social media platform. Gracias, thank you, and have an awesome day.